As the lead actress in Living with My Mother's Killer, you portray Mara, a character who forgives her mother's murderer. What drew you to this complex role? First of all, I'm so grateful for Hallmark and the unimaginable opportunities, people, things it has brought into my life. It is the greatest. Hallmark is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I am so grateful to get to tell stories where there is a happy ever after, because I think we live in a world where people need that. That being said, I like to watch stories where there is no happily ever after. My favorite thing is true crime documentaries. And so when the opportunity came up for me to play a character that was based on real life events, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was also directed by Lucy Guest, who directed me in Journey of My Heart. I think that's what it's called, the Eagle movie. And ever since I met her, I thought she was one of the greatest women I have ever met. We became very, very good friends. She is a brilliant director. So when this came through, it was like an immediate yes for me. Mara's decision to forgive her mother's killer and allow him to work on her property is quite controversial. How did you approach portraying such a morally challenging situation? Now, I don't think the killer is who you think the killer is. Maybe it is. I'm going to try and answer these questions with the idea or with the notion that maybe some people haven't seen the movie, because the twist in it, when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I did not see that coming. I will say that Mara definitely operates from a place of forgiveness and giving people the benefit of the doubt to a fault. But I think that that's also a very endearing quality about her. She comes from a place of kindness and empathy and understanding and really wants to believe good in people. Can you share any insights into Mara's emotional journey throughout the film, especially considering her past trauma and the reemergence of the killer in her life? I think this is the sort of trauma that follows you forever. We see flashbacks of her life where she was obsessed with the idea of finding her mother's killer. And we also see that ultimately sort of destroys her life. It ends her marriage. She's unhappy and incredibly unfulfilled. And I think she is desperately throughout this entire film trying to move on. But her past is definitely still haunting her. I think because there are so many unanswered questions that she's unable to let go of. Living with My Mother's Killer seems to explore themes of forgiveness and redemption. How did you think these themes resonate with audiences, particularly in today's society? Well, we definitely live in a society where cancel culture exists. And I think that there's room for discussion on that. I think that everybody deserves the opportunity to learn and grow and change. I think especially if that is paired with a sincere apology. We are ultimately all human, and we're trying our best. And I think it's important to allow people grace to change. That being said, you certainly don't need to forgive every apology. And yeah. The synopsis suggests that Mara's past catches up with her, putting her own life in danger. How does Mara navigate these newfound threats while grappling with her past forgiveness? I think Mara definitely puts herself absolutely last. Everything comes before her, even when her life is in danger. Throughout the whole film, everybody's saying, there are many different characters basically telling her to stop and that something bad is about to happen, but she doesn't listen. I think she almost has this vengeance for her mother. And I think that that's very real. You mess around with people's family. I imagine that's something something else takes over you. And any form of logic seems to be overlooked. I definitely think that's the case with Mara. What kind of preparation did you undergo to authentically portray Mara's psychological and emotional turmoil throughout the film? it was when I make Hallmark movies, there are some days where I go home and I complain that my cheeks are sore because I've been smiling too much. Or on my last movie, I complained that my tummy hurt because I was laughing so much. That was certainly not the case when we made this movie. We ended up doing all the stunts on one day, and it just so happened that the stunts were also the most emotionally taxing scenes as well. So to have an entire day of basically being in an incredibly heightened emotional state the entire time, I certainly felt it when I went home. I had somebody walk me to my car. I was scared to get out of my car when I made it to the parking garage. I had trouble shaking it, and I was so lucky when we made this movie. It was with Grayston Holt, who is the nicest man you will ever meet. I'm telling you, if you asked me to say a bad word about him, I couldn't. And that is not often the case with my. Is that a terrible thing to say with my male co-stars? I can usually find something bad to say. I'm sure they have a lot of bad things to say about me. But I can't, I do not want bad things to say about him. He is such a lovely person. He has a gorgeous wife. They have a beautiful baby girl. Where anytime between scenes, I was like, show me pictures of your baby. Like, she's so cute. He would make people coffee. He's just lovely. Like a really, really nice guy. And we also had a stunt coordinator there, so I knew I was 100% safe in the environment. But it didn't mean that between during action and cut, I sort of allowed myself to suspend reality as best I could and believe that this was really happening. And based on physicality alone, Grayston is so much bigger than me. And allowing myself to imagine if this was really happening, it was terrifying. There's very little prep I did personally. I just really did allow myself in those moments to go, okay, you're safe. Let's pretend you're not. The dynamic between Mara and the murderer must be intense. Can you discuss the nuances of their interactions and how they evolve throughout the story? I can't do that without saying who the murderer is. So you have to watch the movie. As an actress, how do you balance portraying Mara's vulnerability and her strength, especially in the face of danger? It was interesting. So I just watched it last night. I was hypercritical of myself because I haven't seen myself in a role like that before. And I honestly, I didn't think about balancing anything on the day. So much of it was in the script. And I just tried to do it all as honestly as I possibly could. And when Mara believed something, I was like, this is true. This is real. This is what's really going on. And when her reality sort of started to get skewed and she started to find out more information about different people, I also really lent into that and basically just as best I could followed her thought process and where she was at and believed everything that she believed 150%. Lastly, what message or impact do you hope Living with My Mother's Killer leaves on its audiences, particularly regarding themes of forgiveness, healing, and facing one's past? I don't know. Okay, I'm going to answer it just more as like a viewer's point of view, like an audience member who's just watching something because I like this kind of stuff. And I hope that there are moments when the audience watches it that they feel scared and they feel unsure of what's going to happen next. That's definitely my favorite thing when I'm watching movies like this. And I hope that it's all believable. Because you have to, some of it may seem far-fetched, but like I said, this was based on a real story. So I really hope, and certainly in watching the film last night, and the actors are phenomenal in each of their roles. So I really do. I just hope the audience believes the story that we're telling, because it felt very real while we were making it. What can you tease about your next project? I just got back from Costa Rica, where I was making a movie. I had the best time of my life. I had the best time of my life. It was the most incredible experience I've ever had. I wish I could go back and do it right now. I've said this before, but this is my favorite movie I've ever made. Should be coming out soon. I'm just so excited. I'm so excited for this one. And then also I had a table read yesterday. I'm going into 2 more movies, which I think I maybe teased earlier, but it was like, I don't know if it was going to happen. If it was, if it wasn't, it's happening. And we start those next week. It's not Nikki and Nora, but that is apparently still on the cards. Hopefully. That's all I really want to do. I want to do another Nikki and Nora, and in the meantime, I'm very, very excited for what else is to come. Okay. Thank you so much, Desiree. I love you. Goodbye.